Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 2 of Showtime's The Curse, entitled Pressure's Looking Good So Far. You know, I said in my last video that I wasn't sure what direction the show was going. You know, I felt like they set up a number of potential paths, as well as toeing the line between being a serious drama and a black comedy. You know, this week, I feel like they leaned a bit more into the drama and a bit away from the comedy, which I don't mind one bit. I kind of prefer it. You know, the best work in this episode, though, I thought was nonverbal. All three of the main leads did a great job of emoting some pretty deep-seated pain, and I'm all in on the show that delves into social issues like gentrification and race relations, especially when we're talking about whites and Native Americans. You know, it explores its lead's deepest pain and trauma, but then also has some cherry tomato jokes. So, like, yeah, I'm enjoying kind of like the mix of what I'm getting so far. But I want to approach talking about this episode through the lens of each of the leads, and I'm going to start with Dougie, surprisingly, because that date or whatever it was he went on, holy shit, that was way heavier than I was expecting. So when we first see Dougie, he appears to be on a date, and it seems like a very Dougie-like date at first, where he's rationalizing drunk driving. And you're just like, yeah, this seems like Dougie giving tips on how to get your blood alcohol content down and making light of drunk driving. Like, yeah, sure, that seems like him. Oh, and by the way, I didn't bother looking it up, and I'm sure one of you will be more than happy to tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But the actress that he was on the date with, it looked like the woman from 40-Year-Old Virgin that was sucking on Steve Carell's toes and got kicked in the face, and she had like the bloody nose. I think that was the same woman, but I'm not sure. Obviously, it's been a lot of time since that movie. Anyway, as the conversation progresses, you see his date become more uncomfortable with his drunk driving rationalizations. And it almost becomes funny for a second how she keeps pressing him with questions about it. But then as the conversation continues, we come to find out that not only was Dougie in a drunk driving car accident, but that his wife died in the accident too. And then they leave from the bar or restaurant or wherever he is, and he offers her a ride home in lieu of her taking an Uber. And she's clearly hesitant and asks if he's okay to drive. And then he just kind of like wears her down into agreeing to go with him. And even that was kind of toxic. Why did he insist like that? Like that would have been, if I were a woman, that would have been, especially on a first date, that would have been off-putting to me how much he was insisting on giving me a ride versus me taking the Uber. Like, you offer, she says no, whatever. But, and so, like I said, it's like he wore her down. And I don't know about you guys, but the whole time that they were in the car, I was on the edge of my seat worrying that Dougie was going to have a car accident and being prepared to get in front of this camera and have to tell you guys how predictable that was. But instead, we have these moments where Dougie is just kind of staring off into space. And the first time I thought it was a humorous way of indicating that he was drunker than he thought that he was. But then they do it again, and he blows a .1 into his detector that he has, and then they pull over and get out and walk. And I remember thinking back to the restaurant scene when they got out of the car to walk. And in the restaurant, after we learned that Dougie's wife died in his accident, he quietly and meekly says that that's all he thinks about. So he's got an indescribable level of guilt on his heart, despite him outwardly trying to make light of blood alcohol content levels. So then when he's driving with another young woman in the car, feeling buzzed, and blows that .1 and has to get out and walk, it's just not that he has to do that. It's that this entire experience is probably like literally mirroring the circumstances of the accident, or at best making him relive it, the circumstances of the accident with his wife. And so when I'm looking at him now and I'm thinking back on, like, I think they show him like kind of like staring off into space like 2 or 3 times. And like I said, that first time it was kind of funny, but then like the second or third time, once the scene was over, I thought about those, and I'm like, he was probably just completely just like in a space of like, I'm reliving the worst moment of my life again kind of thing. And then blowing the .1, like, all right, fuck this. And it just gave a completely different vibe to that sequence of scenes that I thought was really good. And so now I come out of this episode with an entirely different outlook on Dougie. He was your generic douchebag reality TV show producer last week, and now he's the guy who sits and plays poker at the casino alone because he has nowhere else to go while they wait to see if the show gets picked up, and he's carrying the guilt of a dead wife on his heart. And he just has to sit there and just like eat it and deal with it because he just lost everything. And like all of that is buried underneath him being kind of a dick when he's being a producer. And like, man, that's some heavy shit, man. So yeah, we don't see too much of Dougie this week, but like what we got was really great work with his character. So really good stuff there. Moving on to Asher. I mean, this is like peak Nathan Fielder cringe right here, man. Like, Asher's plotline in this episode involves trying to leverage the relationships he built at the casino where he used to work to steal footage to give to that reporter. And remember, he's throwing this casino under the bus to save his own ass so that the reporter doesn't air the interview where he snapped at her. So the thing I love the most about all of these scenes with Asher is his complete and total awkwardness that should have given away what he was trying to do multiple times. Like, every time he tried to make a move to convince his friend to take him to the computers and the friend rejected it, you could see like the mental gymnastics going on in Asher's head to try to delay having to leave. Like, the friend's like, oh no, it's okay, I'll see you around. Asher like points him out to the door, and then he just stands there like, yeah, but that was a great time that we like he was so awkwardly trying to buy extra time. It was so bad in a good way. Like, he'd have these long moments where he'd just stand there and look like he was thinking before he would just say something else to give himself some more time or suggest another ridiculous plan. Like, it was nuts. And it was fairly tense while also being funny because not only is the friend not catching on, but you're also concerned about what would happen if he does, right? So my only issue is that I did feel like they dragged some of those scenes out a little long, but I also understand that that's meant to build that tension. And they're also meant to help us understand Asher through showing us what he thinks is a good idea and what he thinks is not a good idea. So I get it. I just feel like the episode dragged a little bit at parts. Let's see. So Asher finally gains access to the computers by asking to show his friend a viral video after having to lie about not being able to watch it on his phone, and after having to reveal for whatever reason that he felt this was necessary and that Whitney was pregnant. I don't even know why that worked. He's like, yeah, I'm pregnant. He's like, oh, wow, it's amazing. Like, all right, can I see the computers in the back now? Sure. Like, why did that change? Why did that change how you felt about it? And then we have to watch Asher try to execute this terribly awkward and very obvious plan that his friend still doesn't see happening right in front of him. And it's so, like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's going to be bad, and you're just waiting for it. But in short, Asher intentionally spills Gatorade on his friend, misses, and then has to purposely pour it on him on his head when he's not looking. Like a literal just like, meh. And then as if that wasn't bad enough, he then goes to pour it on himself to make a point. But I swear to God, I haven't watched it back. They must have refilled the bottle before he did that, because it looked like he poured an entire fucking gallon of Gatorade on himself. And I'm sure Nathan and Benny know that if I go back and look at that scene, that the Gatorade level won't track. If they, you know, if they did refill it, they know that I will look and see that it doesn't track. Like, it was way more when he poured it on himself than what was left after he poured it on Benny. But it also doesn't matter for the purpose of that scene, because it's all meant to just be outrageous and shocking and make you just go, holy shit. And it's whether or not they refilled the bottle to pull the scene off, I don't give a shit. And it worked. You know, Asher successfully gets the footage, so I guess we'll get to see how that doesn't work out for him next week. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Lastly, of course, I want to talk about Whitney, who had a pretty interesting episode this week as well. Whitney's like the quintessential white liberal. She's trying so hard to be perceived as virtuous and woke or as an ally, and it makes her completely oblivious to how like off-putting and offensive she can be. So she can't see that she's not liked or respected by the natives that she interacts with in this episode. When you first see her, she's with the head of the Pueblo tribe, who's played by Gary Farmer, best known, at least to me, as Uncle Brownie on Reservation Dogs. And you can tell that Whitney is trying to ingratiate herself to this community, and he reluctantly agrees to attend an event for her, along with a native artist named Kara. You can kind of suspect that Uncle Brownie isn't totally buying what Whitney is selling, but Kara doesn't even attempt to hide that contempt at all. Rather, she uses Whitney and Asher for multiple free meals and makes them bring it to her house. Things are no better at the event as Whitney enters something called the structure. Kara slices her some turkey, legit with the whole, like, not like, oh, I got some turkey here, I'm gonna cut you a slice, or here's a package of slice. She has like the literal fucking thing that the deli that like shaves. Whitney eats the turkey, and this prompts Kara to let out like this blood-curdling scream. And at first I thought she was fucking with Whitney, and I still think that she possibly / probably is. But she does it even when Uncle Brownie doesn't eat the turkey, which I thought was the point. Like, I thought the point was for her to not eat or anybody to not eat the turkey. Like, I thought it was like some like Catholic like body of Christ type shit. Like, except she ate Jesus, but yeah. But the point is, like, you're not supposed to eat her body. Like, that's why she asked Whitney why she ate it. Kind of like handed it to her like, oh, here's my gift to you. It is like a representation of me. And you're just like, yeah, fuck it. You just eat it. She's like, why would you eat that? You don't understand that you're supposed to treasure that? But then Brownie takes it, doesn't eat it, says thanks, and then she screamed at him anyway. So I don't know what the screaming was about. My backup guess is that she's trolling him too for even fucking with Whitney, but I don't know. I could have missed something too. Then lastly, we learned that Whitney is, or rather was, pregnant. During their checkup, we and Asher, I believe, also learned that Whitney previously had an abortion. Now, let's take into account that Whitney had an abortion that Asher doesn't know about, and couple that with the fact that they don't have sex, and add on to the fact that we saw what sex with them looks like, as in not sex that's going to create babies. And I'm beginning to wonder if Whitney was sexually assaulted at some point, got pregnant via that sexual assault, had an abortion, and that has now impacted how she has sexual relationships with men. So that would be some heavy shit to cover too. It also makes Whitney's reaction to Doug at the end of episode 1, when Doug's telling her that men are gonna like love her or whatever, once the show hits, it makes that her reaction to that a little more interesting. You know, I joked about maybe her fucking him instead because he has a beefsteak tomato dick. But maybe him telling her that the men are gonna be totally into you and they're gonna want you when this show ends, maybe that triggers her. You know, so that reaction was less like, oh shit, I didn't consider that. How am I gonna react if I'm famous and I'm walking down the street and men are just walking up to me? So like that, and I'm not saying that's where they're going with that. I almost feel like that might be a little bit too heavy for this show. I don't know if the show's trying to go there, but I find it interesting that the abortion seemed to be news to Asher. Their sex life being irregular, I think, would be the best way of the nicest way of putting it. And then I think it's the very last scene, they're sitting in the car, and Asher says something like, you know, you could tell me anything, right? And she's like, yeah. Like, that to me felt like an invitation to, like, you know, you could explain the abortion, right? And she's just like, yeah, and then doesn't. So, like, it makes me wonder if there's something buried there. I also kind of thought, too, and I'm not saying that this is what it is either, but I feel like the show didn't really give me anything for this. I'm kind of just gleaning this on my own, but like the nature of their sexual relationship, as we saw, they're not having intercourse. They said that they're not having sex. She even said that she told her father that they're not prioritizing having a kid right now, or prioritizing having sex, yet she's pregnant. Like, are we supposed to suspect that she cheated on Asher at some point? And the awkwardness that would, like, from the moment that she tells Asher she's pregnant, the way they both kind of like strangely overreact to it, and I feel like there's like this permeating awkwardness throughout the rest of the episode. It makes me wonder if it could be a thing, maybe not the sexual assault thing, but if the thing where it's like Asher's thinking like, we don't even have sex, who the fuck is she pregnant by? And the "you could tell me anything" is his way of like, you could tell me who the fuck you're pregnant by, because it sure as fuck isn't me. Something like that. Either one of those things are really super interesting avenues to go down. So, crazy interesting stuff, man. But yeah, a lot less comedy in this one, but I think a lot more interesting character work. And I'm excited to see what's coming. So until next week, peace.